Welcome back to We Are Here. I'm your host, Chase Levitt. And real quick, I just want to remind all Utahns that Caucus Night is tomorrow, March 5th at 7 p.m. If you don't know where your precinct is, where you're meeting, anything like that, just go to utgop.org. You'll find all the information there. Make sure to get pre-registered, and I'd love to see you out there to make your voices heard. Go run to be a delegate if you can. It's awesome. We need it. But to the point of this episode here, I want to welcome Trent Christensen. He is currently a Republican candidate running for the Attorney General position here in Utah. Trent, thank you so much for coming on.
Chase, so happy to be here. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for plugging Caucus Night, and thanks for having me on. Excited to be here.
Of course. The first thing I want to just kind of talk about is kind of who are you? For those of you who don't know you, what's your background and why are you running for Attorney General?
I appreciate that. I am an American first candidate for Attorney General, and what I want to do is drain the Salt Lake Swamp. That's what it boils down to. And I can do that because I have the experience to do that, but also the vision to do it. So I'll talk a little bit about my experience. Grew up in Utah my whole life. I went to law school. I went to BYU, graduated BYU, and went to law school, graduated magna cum laude. Went out east, practiced complex business litigation for a number of years. I handled multi-million-dollar lawsuits against big corporations that were being sued by the federal government, filed briefs with appellate courts, with the Supreme Court. But then I came back to Utah, and I came back to Utah. I've been general counsel for a number of companies. I was a CEO of a company for a time, and now I'm general counsel for a tech firm that does AI for the military. We have military contracts, we work with defense contractors, that sort of thing. And I bring up that experience because I think it's important. I think there's two things that the Attorney General is going to need. That person has to be a litigator, has to understand what it's like to be in court and to fight. If you don't have that experience, it's going to be tough to lead a group of 300 attorneys. But the office isn't just 300 attorneys. And this is why I mentioned the CEO experience. The office is 600 people that all work for the Attorney General, 300 of which are attorneys. And if you don't have CEO experience, leadership experience, you're not going to run that office. That office is going to run you. And so I come in with both. I'm a litigator. I've been a CEO. I'm currently general counsel, and I know how to lead and install my vision. A lot of people have said I have experience. I'm a litigator. That's great. But if you don't have the ability to get your vision and get people to fall in line with your vision, then you're never going to be able to get what you want to get done. So I did that. Like I said, came back to Utah, I'm general counsel. And I want to tell you a quick story if I could, Chase.
Yeah, sure.
Talking about experience.
Yeah.
About the first case I ever took to trial. And it's part of the reason I'm running for Attorney General. I was a first-year attorney, and I was practicing out in Boston. And I had a friend come to me, who's my ecclesiastical leader, and he introduced me a couple. He said, you got to listen to these guys. And they told me a story about how the state had come and at gunpoint took their two daughters away from their home, 9 and 11. And they did all of that based off of an accusation of a disgruntled former employee. The guy made some crazy accusations, terrible accusations. The state just came and took their daughters away. And so he said, will you help them? The state's going to try and terminate their parental rights and take their daughters away forever, put them in foster care. So I took the case, reviewed the case, absolutely no facts. There was no basis in fact. And I showed up to the first hearing to protect these parents. And the state literally just went like this. They tossed this motion at me. And I looked at the motion, it's this 24-page motion. And it was for sanctions against me, the attorney. And they did it as it was like a brushback pitch. It was like, hey, you're a first-year attorney. You're just a kid. You don't know what you're doing. Don't mess with us, right? We're in charge here. So yeah, I argued the motion. I won the motion. I won the hearing. But it took me 8 months to get those kids back with their parents and to protect those parents from the state, right? Yeah. And I don't have to tell you that the second those daughters got back to those parents, they left the state. They're out, right? We're going somewhere else. But it's another part of the experience that I think people need to understand about an attorney general. Okay, it's not enough to be a CEO, to be a leader. It's not enough to have been an attorney for the state, to have fought for the state. If you don't know what it's like to have fought the state, taken the state on head to head, and won that battle, I don't know if you have the experience necessary to be the attorney general, because the attorney general, everyone knows the attorney general is the state's chief law enforcement officer, but you're not the state's attorney. You're the people's attorney. And unless you have that mindset, you're not going to have the right approach to protecting people's individual rights. My job as attorney general will be to protect your rights, even against the power of my own office if necessary. And that's why I'm running. I said earlier, I want to drain the Salt Lake Swamp, and maybe I'll get a chance to tell you what I mean by that.
For sure. Well, why don't we go with that? What do you mean when you say you want to drain the Salt Lake Swamp?
I think people are starting to realize that they don't actually have a voice in government. The people that have a voice in government are special interests that hire lobbyists, and those lobbyists are really the people who are in control up at the legislature, and they've infiltrated every level of government. You may not know this. Utah is one of the only states that allows lobbyists to run political campaigns. And you can kind of see why that would be a bad idea,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Because if you're running for office, Jason, let's say I'm a lobbyist and I represent you. I've never been a lobbyist, but let's say that's the case.
Yeah.
And you win, I'm eventually going to come back and ask for my favors, right? And
Yeah.
there's a lot of members of the legislature that have worked with lobbyists, and those lobbyists have gotten them elected, right? The executive branch, the legislative branch, even the regulatory agencies have a lot of influence of these special interests. I mean, just take this example: Facebook, right? Facebook lobbied the legislature for a lot of money. They got a lot of money from the legislature, built their data center, right? And now the state is suing Facebook because of what Facebook did with their algorithms, and knowing that those algorithms were addictive, and they still went ahead with it. But how did they get all that money from the legislature? Well, it was the lobbyists, right? And in
Right.
particular, one lobbyist that's actually a candidate in this campaign lobbied for Facebook. Again, an example of special interest. So when I say drain the swamp, I mean pull the power of the lobbyists out of government and give the people back their voice. So I want to change a lot of the election laws. My top issue, and the thing that I'm going to attack on day one, is I'm going to begin an audit, an investigation of Utah's electoral system, a full statewide transparent audit of the entire system. And people have said to me, like, okay, hold on. Isn't the lieutenant governor in charge of elections? And the answer to that is yes. But as attorney general, that office has the full constitutional authority to run that investigation without anybody's permission, right? And I
Yeah.
want to see it all. I want to see the ballots. I want to see the machines. I want to interview county clerks and their offices. I want to understand the entire process, because without that, you can't really understand what's working, what isn't, what do we have to fix. And I guarantee when we do it, we're going to find that the influence of lobbyists is one of the major problems in this state. And I want to pull that out. I want to put the people back in charge. That's what I mean by drain the Salt Lake Swamp. Get the lobbyists out of power and put the people back in power.
I love that. Thank you for sharing. Another thing I want to talk about real quick. There's been talk that the governor wants to move the attorney general's office into an appointed position instead of elected by the
Yeah.
people. I mean,
Yeah.
just that simple thing that he wants to do proves your point about the Salt Lake Swamp. They want to
Yeah.
take the
Well,
power out of the hands of the people and put it into the hands of the governor.
right. And let me be fair on that point. I want to be accurate on it. The notion of doing that was proposed by a state senator, Mike McKell. He
Mhm.
does happen to be the governor's brother-in-law.
Yeah.
Okay. And in the articles that I read, the governor said I'd need to see more information about it, but initially he was supportive of it, right? And so if you read between the lines, yeah, I would agree with you. That's what the governor wants. He wants to take the attorney general's office, a state constitutional role, right, and put it
Yeah.
under him. And here's the thing: to do that takes the single most important chess piece that the people have off the board, right? The state attorney general is the most important check, the most powerful check against every other branch and officer of government that the people have. The state attorney general can check the governor's power. He can check the legislature's power. He can check the judiciary power. Not only that, but he or she has oversight over every single regulatory agency. So something else I want to do, not just audit election integrity, I want to audit all the regulatory agencies, and I want to start with DCFS. I'm 47 years old. I've never in my life seen or heard of a full forensic audit of DCFS, Division of Child and Family Services. Where's the money going? Is it working? Is it not working? If you get approached, if you get attacked by DCFS, what is your recourse? Because right now, your only recourse is you either hire a very expensive attorney or you just take it, right? And those aren't two great alternatives. So part of what I want to do inside the office is create a division that allows for that kind of recourse for ordinary citizens, right? And
Yeah.
give people back their voice. So I've been fighting to say, no, the attorney general's office needs to stay independent. It's not the only instance. There's been other positions, other boards that has been floated to have those also be appointments under the governor. And listen, I'm not the smartest guy in any room I walk into, but I know that in the entire course of human history, there has never been an example where the consolidation of power led to less corruption, right? That
Yeah.
usually leads to more corruption. So I'm 100% opposed to it, but mainly because the people need that voice, and that's what I want to be.
Exactly. And I mean, it's just the idea to me is insane. And like you said, when power is consolidated, that's when it's the most dangerous.
Right.
Um, but I want to move kind of towards, if you become attorney general,
Yeah.
people want to know where you'll stand when it comes to issues on the national stage.
Yeah.
For instance, a big one is the Texas border dispute with the federal government over that
Right.
recent Supreme Court case
Yep.
ruling. What are your stances on that? And then one other thing is we recently today saw the Supreme Court overruling the Colorado. Um,
9-0.
man,
Can you imagine
exactly,
that? All the liberals.
exactly.
I mean, it,
Well, that proves how crazy it is.
exactly. Exactly. I mean, just an utter, complete attempt to bypass the law and turn this into a banana republic, right? So I
Exactly.
appreciate your question, and I'm going to start with this answer. I was the first candidate in this race to do it, and I'm going to reiterate it here today. I 100% endorse and support Donald J. Trump for president.
Awesome.
And here's why I start with that. Um, to date, I think every single other candidate has said some version of, I support limiting the federal government overreach into the states. And my response to that is great. So do I. But if you don't also endorse Donald Trump, then that's kind of hypocritical to say you want to limit federal overreach into the states, because there's been no other president in modern history that has actually limited federal overreach into the states like Donald J. Trump. How can you not support him and say you want to limit federal power, right? Not even Reagan did as much as Donald Trump did to limit federal overreach into the states. I mean, just
Right.
looking at regulations alone, right? Pulling back on the federal government. And again, you mentioned illegal immigration, right? Donald Trump has a plan, and he's said it multiple times. There's going to be deportations of the illegals, right? He knows exactly what he's going to do. There's no other candidate out there talking about their plan to end the illegal immigration and then deport those that are here illegally.
Yeah.
It's only Donald Trump. So anytime a candidate says, well, I support this or this or this, but they haven't endorsed Donald Trump yet, it makes me chuckle. I've heard one of the candidates say, well, I'm going to support the nominee. And it's like, well, wake up. Like, we know who the nominee is, and it's
Exactly.
Donald Trump. And I endorsed him back on January 16th. So I want to start there. I think that's the most important piece, is having an attorney general that's going to be in lockstep with the president, because the president has certain constitutional powers, right? And a state attorney general has massive constitutional powers, both within the state and without the state, right? Throughout
Yeah.
the entire country. And let me give you a good example. There's a senator from Missouri. His name's Eric Schmidt. He was the Missouri Attorney General. Okay. When Biden passed his unlawful student loan forgiveness program, Eric Schmidt said nope. And he sued on behalf of Missouri, and he took it all the way to the Supreme Court, argued it himself, and he won. But that didn't just affect Missouri, that affected all of us, right? Now, granted, Joe Biden went around and kind of still did some illegal stuff with that, but
Yeah.
at least he fought it and he won, right? You've got other AGs around the country, Rakita in Illinois, you've got Moody in Florida, you've got Skermetti in Tennessee. They're fighting the fight. They're suing big pharma, they're suing big tech, right? They're suing the federal government. And here's the thing, if you get enough of those warriors that are really willing to take that on, you can start saying, hey, look, you sue the federal government this way, and I'll sue them this, and you can have a coordinated attack to go after some of these problems, right? There's a
Right.
lot the Attorney General could do in this state to stop illegal immigration. Because look, I-15 is a major corridor for drug trafficking, child trafficking, sex trafficking, right? We have standing to sue and to use our law enforcement to enforce some of these laws, just like they're doing in Texas, right?
Right.
But we're not doing that yet. So that's part of what I want to do. I want to take a role and be proactive and say, no, we're not going to wait for the federal government to act and then we react to them. We're going to take them on. We're going to take them on head on all these issues.
I appreciate that answer because it's become really evident, especially during this Biden administration. The federal government is just doing everything that they can to overreach with when it comes to their power, and we
Yeah.
need strong attorney generals to stick up to it. Some
Yeah.
states don't have that luxury. They don't
No.
have attorney generals that push back. They sit back and fall in line. And so I
Yeah.
really appreciate that answer there. And the fact, other candidates saying we'll support the nominee. You're right. We have a nominee. That's
Right.
not changing.
It's it's
Nikki
time.
Haley's winning DC, and that's about it.
That's right.
So it
That's right.
so yeah, I appreciate that. Next thing I kind of want to talk about is more on just your values and what you stand for.
Right.
Um, when it just comes to being a conservative, a
Yeah.
Republican,
Yeah. I
why
love that.
why should people believe? Because we have a lot of Republicans saying they're Republicans,
Yeah.
but they're really not. Why are you a Republican?
So the first time I became a state delegate, I was 18 years old. And I went because my dad asked me to. He said, "You're going to come with me. I'm going to teach you how this works." And I went, and I knew all the people there, I'd grown up with. There was a lot of my mentors, my friends, and they said, "Oh, let's have Trent do it." And there was some other people that wanted to run, and they said, "No, no, 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 we want to help the next generation," right? So I
Right.
became a state delegate, did the whole thing, and I learned what it meant to be the voice of the people. Okay. I love our caucus system. I think it's not perfect, but it's probably the closest thing we have to actual true representative democracy, right? A
Right.
representative republic. And I start with that because voice of the people, to really value and prioritize the voice of the people, is what I believe it means to be a conservative, right? Limited government, free market capitalism. But at the end of the day, it's all about the people, right? And so I'm 100% committed to caucus. I'm only running caucus. I'm not gathering signatures. There's another candidate in this race that's their choice, but I'm only going to the delegates. So my race may end on April 27th at convention. I don't think it will. I think the delegates will see that I'm a conservative voice of the people candidate, and I think they'll vote for me. But that's where I want to start. That's one of my highest values, is making sure the voice of the people is heard. It's not right now in Salt Lake. There's too many lobbyists that are drowning out with big money the voice of the people, and I want to change that. But on top of that, I think we need full transparency in government, right? I don't have any problem, once I get into office, having my calendars be shown or anything like that. I
Yeah.
want the people to see what's happening. And I don't disagree with the stance, the current administration, the legislature, they can do what they want to do. But that's what I want to be. I talked about the audit of the electoral system, right? I talked about the audit of DCFS. I think those are important, but they only work if they're fully transparent. Okay. So I don't want to run them. What I'm going to do is set up legal advisory boards that are in charge, that answer to me, but have full authority to run those audits. So, for example, I've talked to somebody, and I'm not going to give you his name yet, but he was a former legislator. He's an attorney. He's worked with DCFS his entire career. He's created laws that pertain to DCFS. He's fought DCFS. He knows it in and out. And he's agreed, if I'm elected, to run that audit. And every
Awesome.
step along the way will be public, and the results will be public. What I don't want is for them to give me the results and, like any other government agency, like redact some of it, right, and then put it out. No, the public
Right.
needs to see it, because if the public sees it, they can get that answer they can get their opinion to their legislators and see, like, look, the attorney general just ran this audit of the electoral system. This clearly doesn't work. We have to change it. The attorney general just ran this audit of DCFS. All this money being spent, right? We need to change it. And it's when you put light onto problems that people can start to make rational choices. Right now, people don't have any idea. So I believe in
Right.
integrity. I believe in the voice of the people. I believe in transparency. And I believe in justice. I believe that as the top cop of this state, we need to make sure that people have a voice. And I'll mention this really quick. There's only one type of law enforcement in the state that's popularly elected. It's the county sheriffs. Okay. No other members of law enforcement are popularly elected. State law enforcement,
Right.
highway patrol, whatever. Right. And if that's the case, then who are the members of law enforcement we ought to be going to first and foremost to hear the voice of the people? It's the sheriffs, right? So I've been making a point to talk to every single one of the sheriffs and tell them, look, if you support me, if you don't support me, I want you to know that you're going to be the place I start and end whenever I need to know what's happening on the ground in law enforcement. That's because there's always jurisdictional disputes, right, between county sheriffs and state law enforcement, the county sheriffs and regulatory agencies. And I said, listen, I'm going to listen to everybody, but you need to know that you're going to be where I start and end, because county sheriffs are the voice of the people, and that's what matters to me.
Yeah. Now, with that, I want to ask, what differentiates you from the other candidates? So you've mentioned some things already, but at convention, why should the delegates vote for you?
Here's why I love convention. Okay. For the couple of hours before convention, people are going to be coming around. They're going to come around the booth, and they get a chance to look you in the eye, right? And then when we give our speeches, right? Yes, it's in front of 4,000 people, but they're going to get a chance to really hear my voice and look me in the eye, right?
Right.
And with overwhelming, it's been an overwhelming response that once people hear the passion that I have for full integrity, full transparency, full justice, people understand, okay, I get it. This guy means what he says. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I know the other candidates, and I like the other candidates. They're good people. Okay. But there's a difference between saying, yeah, I'm going to support the president, and I will support the president. Right. And people hear your voice, and they see you, and they look you eye to eye, and they feel your heart, and they say, yep, I believe him. I know how he makes me feel, and I feel like he believes it. And I think that's going to be a big difference. It's not, it's
Right.
kind of subjective. It's not a real objective difference, but it is a difference. And it matters. When people need to have trust in their government, they need to be able to look you in the eye and say, I trust you. And I'm going to trust you until you prove me otherwise.
For
Now,
sure.
we can talk, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying for sure. I completely agree.
Yeah. I mean, we can talk experience, right? Other members of this race, other candidates have been litigators like I have. I'm the only one that's been a CEO. But I said this earlier, experience is about the past. It's things you've done in the past. It's important, but it's the past. What about the future? What's the
Yeah.
vision? What's the plan? And so far, I'm the only one, to my knowledge, that's laid out a plan for what I want to do, both within the office, within government, and within the state and within the national realm, to really put forward conservative principles. And so if people want to say, yeah, I'm going to only vote on experience, great. But if people want someone with a plan of how they're going to come in and exactly what they're going to do to make sure your voice is heard, then I'm that candidate.
Right. Now I can definitely tell. I mean, I talked to you at the Cache County Lincoln
Yep.
Day. And then now I can definitely tell that you're passionate and you mean what you say. You're not just saying things to say things. You're
Yeah.
genuinely passionate about it. And I think you're right in the fact that it is the way that you say it that I can tell.
Yeah.
A lot of people just say stuff to say stuff and they don't really mean what they're saying. They're saying
Right.
to the person's vote, and they'll
They're
go in
reading
and
off
do
a
the exact
teleprompter.
opposite.
They're reading off a cue card. Right. I
Exactly.
don't have any notes here. This is coming from my heart.
Exactly. And that's what I love about you and your experience, you touched on that. And I
Yeah.
loved when you were talking about how you became a state delegate at 18. That's when you really started to do that. I'm planning on running, I'm 18. I'm planning on running for
Good.
delegate tomorrow.
Good.
And so
What?
yeah. And so I think that's just really awesome. And the fact that you understand that for me, it's really important that elected officials agree that the future, younger generation needs to get involved. So I love that as well. And the last thing I just want to have you talk about real quick is just what's your message to Utah?
Yeah. There is a conservative commentator. His name's James Lindsay. He spoke at the recent Eagle Forum, if I recall. And he's got this theory he talks about. And he says, look, there are red states and there are blue states, and then there are fake red states. Okay. He says there's no such thing as a fake blue state. If the state's blue, it's blue, right? But there are fake red states. And in his opinion, Utah is the fakest of the fake red states. And because we talk like we're a red state, we talk like we're conservative, but behind the scenes, behind closed doors, and when lobbyists are there, we don't really stick to the conservative principles that made this one of the greatest states in the union. Okay. And my message to the voters of Utah are, I need your help, because we need to get conservative, constitutional, statewide people elected in order to bring back true conservatism. And let me tell you why I think that's important. I don't think anybody wants to turn Utah blue. I think if Utah were to turn blue, for example, and vote for Joe Biden in the next presidential election, it would just rattle people's brains.
Right.
But if Utah's red, or at least pretending to be red, then they can institute all sort of progressive programs and say, oh, look, Utah's doing this progressive thing. Utah's woke. Look at Utah. All you other red states should be like Utah. And I don't want to be that. I want to be the state where people say,
Right.
look at what's happening with conservative principles and how those principles are working. We need to institute more of that in our state and go straight to conservatism, straight to limited government, straight to protecting the Second Amendment, straight to having the voice of the people be what's in charge, and have people see that's what works. That's the message that Donald Trump brought. That's the message
Right.
that I brought. And people have to, I'm not going to say wake up, people have to be attuned to that fact and say, yeah, we need strong conservatives in statewide offices, in the legislature, right? Throughout regulatory agencies. We need the county sheriffs. We need to make sure that people representing us have our same values, so that Utah isn't just fake red, it really truly is red. And we can leave that legacy for our kids. I have 4 kids. I want them to be able to live in this state and know that it's going to continue to have the values that I have, right? That we have as
Right.
conservative grandkids, right? That's the legacy I want to leave. And I want to say one more thing about that.
Okay.
I only plan on serving 2 terms, period,
Right.
out. I don't plan on running for governor. I don't plan on running for senator. I don't want higher office, right? And I bring that up because if someone has the view that the attorney general's office is a stepping stone to a higher office, then their view isn't for the voice of the people. It's what's best for my political career.
Right.
And maybe if I have to fudge on this conservative principle over here, that's fine because it's better for my political career. It's not what I want. like I said earlier at the very beginning, I'm general counsel at a tech firm, right? I love my job. I love the people I work with. I love what I do, and I want to go back to that job in 8 years and really crush it,
Yeah.
right? So I leave that with people because I believe in term limits specifically because it allows the elected official to focus exactly on what their job is in that moment and then go back to their private life. And that's one of the values I want to bring to this office.
Exactly. And thank you for sharing that message. Just for everyone who wants to support you, follow you, donate, whatever, where can they find you and how can they do that?
Yeah. So my website is www.trentchristensen.com. And I'll spell that. There's lots of ways to spell Christensen.
Yeah.
Trent, and Christensen is CHRISTENSEN.com, TrentChristensen.com. And from there, you connect with our Facebook and Instagram and X, Twitter. You can also donate there. We're, putting more policy updates, by the day up there. And keep checking in, keep checking in, engage with us, follow us on social media to get all the updates. One of the things that I really enjoy doing is, a lot of the candidates will post, not just for Attorney General, like all the candidates will post pictures of themselves at events. I like to post what I say. I like to post my speeches. And I haven't seen a lot of other people doing that. But I like to do it because I want people to hear me say again and again and again and again in front of rooms of 20 and 40 and 100 people what my positions are, what I'm going public about. Because then they'll know, oh, he's serious about it. He didn't just say it on this podcast with Chase. He didn't just say it,
Right.
once when nobody was listening, right? He says it again and again. He means it. And so, yeah, go check out my Instagram, check out my speeches. We'd love to engage with you.
Exactly. Well, for all of you watching or listening, if you like what you heard, you want to support Trent, make sure to run for a delegate position tomorrow at Caucus Night and go to convention April 27th. Go vote for him. Trent, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, Chase. I appreciate you.